before we start our meeting. Father God, I thank you for this group of people who have come on their own time and volunteered to do this work for the city of North College Hill. Please guide us so that we can make the best decisions for our city. Please guide us to do the right things so that we can make good recommendations. We trust in your mercy and we trust in your love. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, I will now call this meeting to order. First of all, I apologize for last week. I always put way too much stuff in my calendar because I think that I am Superwoman and I can just, everything, if it flows the way it's supposed to, then, you know, the times on my calendar it'll just go the way it's supposed to go, but that rarely happens, but yet I keep doing it. So, but I do apologize to you all. So, I want to say thank you to Elijah for this wonderful working draft document because he clearly has put in a lot of thought and work into this. So thank you so much, Elijah. And it just lets me know that I really need to understand how Google Docs works because so thank you so much for that. I want to make sure that we can get through everything that we need to get through. So I'm going to ask Ms. Curitan actually to where we left off.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hope we all had a great day. So we kind of were still combing through the city administrator's area, and we were considering adding in a few different things. One being if we wanted to have listed as qualifications, as is echoing in the finance manager's role. And we also wanted to make sure that, or not even make sure, but consider if we wanted to have any wording in there that included feedback from council. Currently, as it stands, there is no necessary feedback needed from council for that appointment. So that's where we were left off.
I think that it's with the advice of council. I think that's the language.
Yeah. And so Mayor Nichols you can speak on that, Mayor Nichols. You kind of went through that last week and was telling us that out of the last 4 times of your appointment, you only kind of went to council twice because of the circumstances. And so the recommendation was for there to be wording in there that specifically spoke to it, so that it would be the precedent going forward each and every time there's an appointment there.
So let me be clear.
Mm-hmm.
There were only 3 administrators under my appointment. So out of those 3, Mr. Mosby was here before I got here. So 2, I went to council. Out of the 3.
Right. So
I acquired Mr. Mosby.
right. So to that same sentiment, if it was 2 out of the 4, 2 out of the 3, 1 out of the 3, I think that the citizens were looking for it to be 4 out of 4, 3 out of 3, 10 out of 10, for there to be always going to council before that appointment is made.
And Ms. Underwood, we did discuss that in some instances, like with one, that was not the situation where that time allotted to go to council. So I'm not going to say it was the census, but in most cases, not most, in some cases, it won't always allot for you time to go to council and say.
The only issue with trying to get the mayor and council on the same page is that I'm going to give you a for example, and I'm not attacking anybody. I don't want anybody to think I am. But for example, the mayor and council has to be on the same page when it comes to the law director. If the mayor and council are not on the same page, then the law director keeps the position, period.
Right.
So if the mayor wants the law director to stay, then council has nothing to say about it. And vice versa, if council wants the law director to stay, then there's nothing the mayor can do about it. And I don't want to put us in that same kind of position when it comes to a city administrator. I think that, you know, making some kind of qualifications, that's probably okay, but getting the mayor and council on the same page sometimes
Pretty
is
difficult.
can
Yeah,
be
I would
somewhat
agree.
difficult. And I can tell you that sometimes, you know, what you see in a meeting, when you go behind closed doors, it's just a complete, it's like, you know, a metamorphosis
Yeah.
that occurs,
Right.
you know, without saying what happened. I can't repeat what happens. I can tell you that there is a metamorphosis that occurs with some people and their personalities. So it's.
I agree. So that wording was just recommended from citizens primarily because they had not seen, again, 1 out of 1, 10 out of 10, whatever the number of scenarios there are. They didn't see it on a consistent basis. And so they wanted that wording to be in there so that it would be a consistent precedent going forward. And I agree with you. It's super hard. It's extremely hard to have both of those parties come together in alignment. I don't know, you're an attorney, you would know more than I would in this area, but I don't know if there's any wording in there that can say with the advice, because we kind of talked about there being the advice and approval, adding in the approval, or even if there's a different word to use versus advice, thinking that if in fact the parties who are brought to council by the mayor are questionable, then that feedback can be given back to the mayor, and then she can go back to the drawing board. He or she, rather, will be able to go back to the drawing board and consider an additional candidate. Just some wording in there that says council has, I can see you, I can look at your resume, and we can kind of see what this is going to look like going forward. Something from council.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what that looks like, but that does make sense. But I got, you know, again, the getting council and the mayor to agree on anything is
An egregious task.
right, almost impossible. And I've seen it with different mayors. It's not just the current mayor and the current council for some reason. And, you know, and perhaps it should be that way, you know,
Yep.
that they're, you know, you think that, you know, that's not a bad thing. It's just, but it can bring things to a standstill and cause the city problems if we don't have
Right.
a city administrator. Also, if we don't have a city administrator who does not do everything that a city administrator is supposed to do. So there probably should be some language in there with regard to making sure that whoever the city administrator is understands how to do the task necessary
Right.
for a city administrator.
And then we were also talking about the qualifications. And so I know that Elijah put a phenomenal document together. It's superb. So thank you for your diligence in that, because we're all volunteers. But in reference to the qualifications, and so as it states in our charter, there are qualifications listed for the finance, which we'll consider changing into director from manager. But there are no qualifications for the city administrator. And so don't know if we want to add that in. If we do, I wanted to maybe have you all hear something, kind of feel it out, kind of see if this is the direction we want to go for our city. So it would be an addendum to the charter. I don't know if we want to put that in the beginning and move the other things down, but suggestion is following nomination by the mayor, and I'm actually going to say that should be appointment by the mayor. The city administrator shall be appointed on the basis of education. And I want that to be kind of strengthened to include something to the tune of having a master's in public administration or MBA or something of that nature. It can be a degree in education, but just something to strengthen that basis of their education and experience in the accepted competencies and practices of local government management. For example, a master's degree with a concentration in public administration, public affairs, public policy, and 2 years of experience in an appointed managerial or administrative position in a local government, or a bachelor's degree around that. So I'm thinking, and we can just kind of iron this is kind of what I put together, but at least having a bachelor's degree, having at least 2 years of managerial experience, and then that added push would be something relative to MBA or something in master's in public health, or not public health, public administration, are those competencies and experiences that would give us the best candidate for our city.
Yeah, I did some thinking on this since the last time we met. I think having some qualifications listed is a good idea. I do still have the worry a little bit of turning the charter or a section of the charter into kind of a job posting almost, of getting specific with saying things like 2 years of experience or master's degree in public administration, for example, or MBA. So I do agree that it should have some language in there about it should have a degree in a related field, degree and, we could say degree and experience in the related field, or degree and or. But I guess I'd be curious on others' thoughts on being specific with the type of degree or the specific number of years of experience in the charter.
So before anyone answers, are you maybe suggesting that we list that these qualifications are, like, in order to even apply, you need to have these things, and then to have an enhancement on your, again, I kind of agree with you about it being a job application. It's not, but the charter speaks specifically to the finance, which we'll consider director, at having those qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think maybe following like similar language to what's in Article 7.1, right? It says finance manager shall have a degree in finance or accounting and or work experience in a financial capacity sufficient to, I think the operating word there is sufficient to discharge the duties as head of Department of Finance, right? So maybe something like that, but for, city, whatever the right words are for city administrator.
The only thing I would question is who makes that determination if it's sufficient for those purposes.
Yeah, I guess the mayor,
That's
right?
exactly what I was going to say. I
You're
think
asking for just a huge
just
disaster.
but then who makes
it gives council another kind of way to challenge the choice of the mayor, and what we don't want to do is cause the kind of problems that we've had for the last 2 years.
The only thing I'm concerned about with specific, like a master's degree or something, then you'd almost have, you have to pay for it.
Well, yeah, so
And that becomes an
That's
issue too,
true.
because
right.
council controls what those salaries are. So I think it comes down to what we said before, like the reason why all those director positions, with the exception of law director, are specifically appointed by the mayor is the mayor is the one that makes all of those choices, that those people have those qualifications. Council could say, Mayor, we don't like your choice because we don't think that the finance director has experience that's sufficient enough, but all they can really do is voice their opinion.
I think going back to what we kind of talked about last week, when you're operating and managing a multi-million-dollar project as a CEO and CFO, if you look around us and you look at anything that's in corporate, what does corporate require, right? What does the neighboring cities require? And so I'm just trying to have us kind of like level up our expectations. Of course, if we're asking for this, then we would need to pay for this. Similar to how, we would want to change it from manager to director so we can, get qualified candidates here. But I think the first step in that conversation is to ensure that either A, we add it to the charter, or if we don't want to add qualifications, then I don't even think we need to have the qualifications for the finance manager that's echoed in 7.01 there either. If we don't want the charter to have any qualifications listed and solely leave that up to the appointment by the mayor and then those employees by the city administrator, we can go that route as well. I think, though, if you look at other chartering cities in Ohio and around the country, a lot of cities who operate under a charter have the qualifications, especially for the city administrator listed in their charter. But yeah, I think, and maybe we don't want to put a number on there a number of maybe, 5 years or 10 years or what have you. But that level up, stating that this is what we're looking for, this is what we want. You're operating a multi-million-dollar project. Although you have 20 years experience, we want to see that you've really, almost like, if you go into a courtroom, the attorneys want to look and make sure that you're licensed, you're qualified. The judge is going to look, your client wants to look. Even if you've had 20 years of experience, I think you should have the education that can support that.
Well, but yes, but that's not a good example because doctors, lawyers, nurses, they're professionals that are licensed by the state of Ohio, and they have testing requirements and so forth, and they don't get appointed by anybody. They have to pass a licensing system, so it's a little bit different, right?
A little bit different, but the qualification and the standard is still high. The bar is still high.
Look, I understand what you're saying. I'm not arguing with the fact that you want qualified people for the job.
Yes.
I'm not arguing with that. I am saying to you that some of the things you guys are doing are very inconsistent with our overall governmental system that we have in North College Hill. And so if you were going to make those changes, you can make them. But if you make those changes in a vacuum and you don't look at the entire charter and how those are going to impact that, then you're going to, I think, make things worse because it's like those pieces don't fit in this puzzle. They might be good pieces, but when you try to put them in a puzzle here, they don't work. They might work in this puzzle over here, but they don't work in this puzzle here. And because you are a very strong mayor form of government, if you do that and you put those things in there, you might actually bring the city to a grinding halt and provide a bunch of litigation and all those things because then someone's like, okay, well, I'm going to sue the mayor or the council person's going to sue the mayor because I don't think the person they appointed meets these qualifications. And then mayor's going to say, yeah, I think they do meet the qualifications. And then you just turn into this big tornado of a mess where most of those charters that have language like that have a council that votes on a city administrator, and then that vote becomes basically the arbitration system to determine whether the person has the qualifications or not. Does that make sense?
They do. Yeah,
but when you have someone who's appointing somebody, then that person, you can write all that in there, but you have to be okay with the fact that the person who's making the appointment is the one that makes those decisions if the person has that stuff.
Right, sure.
And we're not set up that way. So I'm not arguing with the point. I'm just arguing whether or not it works in our system, that if you're going to do that as a commission, you probably need to look at changing our form of government.
Right. And so that's a topic that I don't think we have the capacity for, but that brings up a very good point. In those cities that have a charter that operates with what he just described, the council actually does have a vote. They have a say-so. And I don't know if North College Hill is there, but I know that there is greater in North College Hill. Just because I go by the process of just because we've done it this way for 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, doesn't mean that's the way we should continue. So it's just food for thought, things to consider. I personally believe that we should have that level of qualification there. It just sets a tone, it sets a precedent, and it also calls for greater, it calls for bigger, it calls for more. Ultimately, it is the mayor who has to say so. So Mayor Nichols, what do you think? Do you think that we should incorporate qualifications of a city administrator?
I do not think that it should be like a job application. If you want to put in there, I do not agree with maybe 2 years experience, but that's like a job application. Like if I go out on Indeed or somewhere like that, I would agree that a bachelor's degree, or how does it read, bachelor's degree, saying that now I'm getting into a job application. So it gets tricky when you try to dictate what words should be in there. Although I'm not opposed to there being some type of qualifications listed, I just would prefer that it not read like a job application.
I'm gonna throw something out there for you guys. Let's say we have a city administrator who is doing a absolutely phenomenal job, whatever, and that city administrator has a personal assistant who follows them to every meeting, who watches them do every report, who has helped author a guide on everything that needs to be done, has done that for 10 years. So that individual absolutely knows what's required of the job, absolutely knows how to do everything required, has gone to the meetings, knows how those meetings are supposed to go, does not have a degree. That person is absolutely qualified to do the job, but doesn't have a degree. I guess I'm really sensitive about people who are indigent or don't have the opportunity to get degrees or to do, I had to learn this the hard way. College is not for everybody. It is just not. I had to learn that the hard way. That being said, just because you don't have a degree does not mean that you're not qualified for that particular job. And I'm not demeaning that particular job, because I think you do have to have a degree to be the finance director. But the city administrator is just a different animal, I think.
And to piggyback on that, just like Ms. Curitan, I think she said something earlier about years' experience, which falls in line with what you just described. And I also agree with that, because, college is not for everyone, and the skills that you learn. But I do know in some places and spaces, you can't get that particular job unless you have a degree.
That's true. So I guess what we're really trying to determine is either we want to keep qualifications a part of the charter, or do we want them to be removed? And if they are removed, if I'm looking at it, the finance manager director reports up to the CEO, CFO of the city. So if we are setting the precedent that there has to be qualifications for the finance manager director, but we don't want qualifications for their manager, it kind of sends a message of confusion, in my opinion. So we either want qualifications for both or no qualifications for either.
I think you have to have the finance manager, director, whatever we're calling it. I'm not sure what we're calling it, but that person has to have, that they have to have that degree. It's one of, just
I
like
agree, they do.
just like the law director has to have, a law license.
Right.
It's just kind of one of those things.
But
there's
doesn't
no
the
way around
manager,
that.
doesn't the
So-
city administrator work hand in hand with the finance director manager to create the annual budget?
Yes, but
Yeah.
that just means the city administrator has to be able to
Rely
on the finance manager, director, whatever. We need to figure out what we're calling that.
Yeah, we do.
And has to know enough about that process to know how to navigate that process.
I don't believe that we've had a city administrator that has not had a degree, at least a
Oh.
bachelor's.
That was going to be my next question. So if we've already been filling a position with that qualification, I don't know why it would be hard.
I don't know,
to-
Ms. Underwood. I'm looking at your face. Do you know something? I'm not in that particular field, but
Well, I guess it comes down to this, your charter is the way it is, and then the citizens elect a mayor, and when they elect that mayor, they're putting their trust that mayor is going to appoint people to those positions that are in the best interest of the city. And if the mayor doesn't do those things, and the voters' recourse is to elect a different mayor the next time they need to do it, right? And that's probably why, for the most part, whoever's been the mayor, at least since I've been here in 2011, has appointed people with degrees. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to just grab somebody off the street and throw them in and say, you're my new city manager just because you're my brother-in-law, right? That's not going to probably work.
So if that is the example that you're using, that we've already been doing it that particular way, I don't see why we could not. If that's Mayor Nichols, you've been here since 18, or what year are we in? This is 25. Yeah. So if you've already been doing it that way, no guarantee that the people after you will.
it's 2012. I
Yeah.
haven't seen anybody appointed that didn't have a degree in something.
Yeah, but you have seen people appointed who council didn't agree with it, and
But that's gonna-
they refused to pay the person.
And right.
Yeah.
So
Another
and that's
topic,
what
another
happens.
day.
And so
Or you can Or you can have somebody with a degree that's not qualified as well.
As well.
There are plenty of people with degrees. I have a degree, but I wouldn't know how to do, my degree would be in criminal justice or criminology, but I have a degree. But is it gonna work for, do I need it to do the city administration when I've got 20 years' experiences as a city administrator?
I think the other key word that I mentioned was the managerial experience too, right? So not only are you needing the degree, that's a facet of the requirement in my recommendation, but I also believe that that experience of leading people, because you are, leading a large group of people depending upon the size of your city. And so I think a piece of the pie is the education. A piece of that pie is experience. A piece of that pie is being able to lead people, managerial leadership. And let's just take it a step further. It can be leading as a volunteer for the PTA for the past 10 years, and you were able to raise so much in capital for the school. It can, just some sort of leadership experience in management to show that you are easy to work with. Not easy, no. You are capable of working with people from multiple different variety, diverse backgrounds, and that, you don't freeze when you've got to deliver a hard message, or you don't freeze when you've got to do something that maybe people don't like. You are able to execute swiftly on all decisions that are in the best interest of the city that you serve. So something managerial, education, experience, something, in my opinion, needs to be there versus just, what can happen in the future. I just think it just safeguards us.
I think your point is well taken, but I think Erica kind of hit it on the head. Council kind of already has the ability to control that a little bit, because if the mayor brings someone to them who doesn't have some reasonable capabilities, then you're not going to you're not going to authorize the money to pay the salary. And that's that could happen. And
That has happened.
Right. So council kind of already has like a little bit of a check and balance on that, because they have to authorize the salary, right? So if I want to bring somebody in as a mayor and they don't have reasonable qualifications, council could just say, well, based on the qualification this person has, we're only going to pay them this much. And whatever that number is could be kind of a check and balance. And I've seen it happen.
So if I can understand that point, the salary ordinance is only reviewed once a year unless a council member brings it back before council. So let's just say we have someone who's appointed by the mayor. Let's just say it's February after council has reviewed the salary ordinance. In order for them to make their voice heard, they would have to bring the salary ordinance back to council floor to discuss that salary, or how would that work?
Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that let's say Mayor Nichols decides, for whatever reason, I'm getting rid of my current city manager. I'm going to appoint my daughter. She's starting tomorrow. And so she shows up and says, my daughter is the new city manager. I have the power to go to two of my fellow council members and schedule a special meeting. I can do that with 24 hours notice. And trust me, it would happen. 24 hours notice, special meeting. All of us show up, we suspend the readings, and we zero out the salary. It's that fast.
So that would be council's way of stating to the mayor, gotcha. Okay.
Right. And that is like the absolute,
Right.
that is the,
Yeah.
I can't remember what they called it when I went to training, but they were like, you absolutely have the ability to, that's what the checks and balances are. You absolutely have the ability to shut down shenanigans, because
So we've had that sort of happen in some extent. We had somebody who was appointed who didn't have a great deal of city experience. They had managerial experience, but not a great deal of city experience. And if you recall, council would not pay that person very much initially,
right.
until such time that the person had experience. So that it actually has, it has worked.
Okay,
Right.
great.
And
So do we want to keep the qualifications for a city administrator and our finance manager or director? Because Elijah did specify that we need to hit quite a few areas.
right.
So.
I think the finance manager has to have the qualifications, but not necessarily the city manager. And again, trust me, the mayor cannot just go rogue with bringing somebody in and we're all like, wait a minute, what
Right.
just happened there?
Epic failure.
So
Definitely.
that would, it's kind of, oh, I remember what they called it. They called it the nuclear option. So even if the city administrator goes rogue and just starts signing contracts, same thing. I call a special council meeting. All 6 of us show up, or 6 people show up. We suspend the readings, and any contract more than $10, you need to come and get our permission. It, nuclear option. There is always, when you control the purse strings, there's always the ability to, check power. So I think that there's already kind of a system in place.
Sure. Just know that this is the feedback from the citizens, and that
Right,
at the
I
end of the day,
understand.
at the end of the day, what we're looking for is a level up, not just doing it. We've done it this way for however many, just a
Right.
level up. Look at what our other neighboring cities, charter or not, are doing, and so that we can stand out and attract really good talent to our city. Elijah, you want to add anything else?
No, I guess just to zoom out for just a second, because we're about halfway through the meeting. How do we want to go about, deciding what gets sent to council for approval here? Because we've had a lot of discussion on this point.
What I'd like to do is I'm going to draft a report, which I actually have to have done tonight because I have to get it to council tomorrow to be on the agenda. So I'll email that to everyone, but I'd like to just include everything, and then council will decide what they want to send to the
Adopt or
voters or
whatever.
not.
Yeah.
But, I don't think that we should limit, we've discussed all of these issues. I think that we just, put it in a report, send it to council, and let them decide.
Okay.
Another piece of information that I wanted to make reference on that same note, Erica, is that we have in here 2 areas, sections 5.03 and section 6.02, adding language. I think we would need to talk through what that language would be so that Erica can have it, or unless we want Erica to create the language. Okay. So, yeah, got it. So,
Yeah, I have, for those 2 in particular, added a comment to the highlight. So 6.02 in particular, if you click on that highlighted text, you'll see some new text off to the side. That was, again, just a draft that we can make amendment to. But I think for those 2 in particular that you referenced, that exists, and I think for a couple more as well.
would you mind reading that aloud for the
Erica, I
audience?
just wanted to make sure, I don't know if you can do what you want to do.
What do you mean?
Well, it says the commission shall consider and make a recommendation to council that shall be voted on and approved by a majority of its members. So you actually have to have,
So we have to vote?
in order to do that, you're going to have to have have an affirmative vote of whatever recommendations you're making.
Where are you reading that at? So we can all read
Okay,
along.
so,
1406.
Thank you.
okay. And vote on every recommendation or vote on the recommendations as a whole?
Well, if you could get, you're
See,
probably going to do every recommendation, because if you have 5 recommendations and you have a majority support on 4 but not on the 5th, then if you do them all together, they might all go down. So I think that's up to you as a chairperson. You could bundle them, but then if you don't get a majority on all 5 of them, someone might say, well, if you separate them, I could support 4 but not the 5th one. So
I think I don't think we're going to do any of that. I think we'll come to a consensus tonight, and I think we won't have that back and forth. Again, we are doing this in a volunteer capacity, and I think that we want to see the betterment rather of our city. And so this is not a tug of war until I get it. No, not this. So
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm just
Okay.
saying what the section says. It just says that you're supposed to submit a recommendation, and it must be voted on by a majority of the members.
Okay, which
Sounds
is,
good.
that's fine. Okay, so, Elijah, I'm going to allow you to let us know where we need to go next.
Yeah, I guess, so do we want to go line by line on the proposed changes and take a vote on those? Or do we want to discuss additional topics? Just 'cause I don't think we've had any particular votes. I think we've generally kind of gone down the line and said what we think on the matters, but just an affirmative.
I think you were getting ready to read that language, that is,
6.02.
yep, so sections 5.03 and section 6.02. So we can hear that language, and then I think we can go line by line and vote.
Okay. And maybe we'll just start with voting on this one, or any proposed adjustments that you guys have.
Right.
So really the only addition to the existing text would be at the very beginning. So it would change. This is 6.02. Sorry. The city administrator shall possess a bachelor's degree in public administration, business administration, or a related field, or at least 5 years of professional experience in municipal administration or a comparable leadership role, or a combination thereof sufficient to discharge the duties of the office.
One more time. Just read it one more time.
Yep. The city administrator shall possess a bachelor's degree in public administration, business administration, or a related field, or at least 5 years of professional experience in municipal administration or a comparable leadership role, or a combination thereof sufficient to discharge the duties of the office.
I think that word "or" opens us up, and I like it. It doesn't like just say you have to have this. It opens us up and keeps us, as Mr. Dieters was stating, out of litigation. I think that, again, I'm not an attorney, so that word "or" I think it just adds value to what we're looking for. It lets us know, like, hey, this is how we see our city 5, 10, when our grandkids 15, 20, So I like it, and that's why I had you read it twice again for the audience, for those who are watching.
Okay. So any other thoughts before? Do we want to take a vote on it? How do
Yeah,
we want to go?
I think we should take a vote on that so we can
Okay.
kind of. Okay, so thinking about this language, section 6.02, I guess powers and duties under city administrator. I'll just go down the line. If you agree or disagree, Mayor.
So I don't agree with all of it. So that's a hard way to answer that. You were looking for yay, nay. The "or," I'll tell you, since there was discussion about the "or," I don't like the 5 years. I don't like the specific degree, because you can have a degree in something different and still excel. We all know that you can have a degree in one particular subject and go work another job just based on but based on that, if the wording were different. So I guess I will have to say no, just based on that. The "or" does change it and give you those different options, but based on the language before, I would say no. I'm not in a disagreement with that. It's just the 5 years and a specific degree.
Rashawn, what about you?
I'm not in agreement with the degree.
Okay. Elijah?
Agree.
You-
4.
I don't know what that means.
4. I vote for the adjustment.
Okay. And Ms. Guriton?
I vote for the adjustment.
Well, that's just interesting, isn't it? I don't agree with that particular adjustment. So I'm a
Can
no.
he come with an alternative this evening? No
Yeah.
pressure. No pressure.
No, I mean, we can adjust it now quickly. So
Sure. Quickly
it
is
is
the
so if it were to not say bachelor's degree, if it just said degree and did not specify the types of degrees, or do we just want to remove reference to degree altogether?
If it didn't say the type of degree, and I think sometimes, this is just my opinion, which is what this is, sometimes 5 years, that's a lot. In most positions, it's 2 to 3 years where you can learn the job, depending on the job. And in a job like city administrator, you jump in hot and everything is popping off. So a year or two, next year you know what you did or didn't do last year. So I don't think it needs to be 5 years. So if we trim that down as well, I would go with the minimum of 2 or 3. 3.
Okay. So at least 3. Experience. Okay, and then removing bachelor. So it currently reads bachelor's degree in public administration, business administration or related field, we could change it to read, are we okay to say bachelor's degree or just degree?
I'm comfortable with a bachelor's degree.
And again, there is
Because
that
then
or in
I think
there.
a bachelor's degree doesn't give you, but I won't speak ill against an associate's degree either, so I won't.
Remember, we're leveling up. So not speaking ill, because an associate's degree,
But
we
when
need
you-
our electricians, we need our carpenters, we need trade school, we need
But what I'm
all
saying,
of
when you
that.
say
But a multi-million-dollar budget,
a degree does not, like Ms. Underwood stated, I absolutely agree with that. A degree does not determine your qualifications. So if you say just because you have a bachelor's, you can have a bachelor's and just have a bachelor's. So that's all I have.
Okay, so I'm going to read it one more time with the adjustments. Maybe vote again and see if we can get there. Okay, so the city administrator shall possess a bachelor's degree or at least 3 years of professional experience in municipal administration or comparable leadership role, or a combination thereof sufficient to discharge the duties of the office.
So you said, I'm making this difficult, you said or. I was thinking bachelor's degree, 3,
Bachelor's degree and,
yes.
okay.
And then the or. You said or twice.
he did, because he opened up the paradigm for us, bachelor's degree or 3 years of experience or, so it doesn't limit us to just having one person or maybe 10 people or 20.
So I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with this. I'll ask this question. Everybody gets their own vote. I'm not comfortable without the degree. That's my opinion. So when you say a bachelor's degree or 3 years, when you say or, to me, it removes the bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Am I, okay?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going. Bachelor's degree, 3 years, or you still have
So
that
bachelor's degree and 3 years. It says or, it doesn't say and.
Currently it says or.
Yeah, it says or.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was intentional on my side.
So explain if you could, I know we gotta move on,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to
Yeah, I guess
understand it.
it was. I think Erica lined it out perfectly. You could imagine someone that would be qualified without the degree, right, with the right amount of experience.
So that's where the first or comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to vote again, or can we just?
We probably need to vote again.
All right.
Can you read it again, please? I'm sorry.
Yep. Okay. The city administrator shall possess a bachelor's degree or at least 3 years of professional experience in municipal administration or comparable leadership role, or a combination thereof sufficient to discharge the duties of the office.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, I keep calling you Rayshawn, but I don't remember your last name, but I would say your last name.
Yes.
Okay. Elijah,
Yes.
Ms. Curtin?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm a yes too. I'll go with yes.
Easy peasy.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Look at that, you
so
got the very first thing accomplished.
Perfect.
That's so funny.
I think we've accomplished. a
We've
lot.
accomplished.
kidding.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
kidding.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I guess the next session you mentioned was 5.03?
Yeah. So 5.03, give me just one moment. So this is, one moment, I'm pulling it up. It is rather a lengthy ad, and maybe, yeah, I'll read it, and we can see if there's any disagreement. So the purpose of this is to give more specific powers of president of council, specifically for maintaining decorum and enforcing rules of procedure. So the text reads, the president of council shall preside at all regular and special meetings of the council, but he or she shall have no vote therein except in the case of a tie. The president shall ensure the orderly conduct of meetings by maintaining decorum, enforcing rules of procedure as established by the council under section 3.07, and addressing disruptive behavior by members of the council or the public. The president may issue verbal warnings, calls for recesses, or with the concurrence of a majority of council members present, direct the removal of any individual whose conduct substantially disrupts the meeting's proceedings. Such action shall be recorded in the journal of the council's proceedings. The president shall also perform any additional duties assigned by ordinance or resolution of the council consistent with the charter. So again, there's a lot there, and maybe that last part where it gets specific on what they can do, I could imagine some discussion on, but maybe if we just want to vote on it as is and go from there.
Mayor?
I'll say yes.
Okay. Rayshawn?
I'll say yes.
Elijah?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree, yes.
Yes. Triple yes.
Okay. All right. I see quite a lot of highlighting and notes here, so
Yeah.
I suggest we go back to the beginning,
Yeah.
and just kind of trudge through.
Um,
So,
Yeah, so the next one, if we just go back to the first one that was highlighted for review, section 3.01, there's some legacy content about transition years. We discussed simply just removing that text. So section 3.01 would just be limited to the first paragraph, and everything after transition years would be removed.
okay, Mayor?
Wait a minute.
It's this stuff right here. The transition years, you don't need anymore.
Everything after 3.01 and the transition years. is
Just, I
strike.
think,
We strike
transition
them.
years,
Okay.
just those two
Yes.
paragraphs
Yes.
after transition years, yes. Rayshawn?
Yes.
Elijah?
Yes.
Ms. Curitan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, going down, I see, under powers of council, I see one word highlighted there.
Yep, so section 3.03 under point 2 for general powers, the new text would add some clarification at the end of it to read, except as otherwise provided through legislation as per section 9.01 of the charter.
I need to go read 9.1 again. Okay.
Is that language really necessary?
Yeah, well, remember, if you recall, when I suggested this, it was due to the fact of a motion about a particular subject and
Yeah, I think it was
no
to make,
legislation.
right, to make sure it was actually legislation and not a motion that would give that
Oh,
power.
I see. Okay. All right, so we've got something under 3.03. And we understand what the purpose of that was. So let's go ahead and take a vote on that. Mayor?
Yes.
Rayshawn?
Yes.
Elijah?
Yes.
Ms. Curitan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so, okay. I'm gonna go, guess, to the
Been
next.
working hard.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, ooh, yeah, 3.07. That was a biggie, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay. So where did we, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
so-
to Elijah. Where were the changes in section 3.07?
Yep, so section 3.07, specifically the vacancies portion, not the removal portion. The proposed updated text here would read, for vacancies, when the office of a member of the council of the city becomes vacant, whether due to death, resignation, removal, failure to take office, or any other cause, the vacancy shall be filled for the remainder of the unexpired term by a person selected by a majority vote of the remaining members of the council. The vote shall occur at a regular or special meeting of the council within 30 days of the vacancy occurring, unless extended by a majority vote of the remaining members for an additional 15 days if necessary to identify a suitable candidate. The the employee must meet the qualifications outlined in section 3.02 at the time of their appointment and throughout their term. If the council fails to fill the vacancy within the specified time frame, the mayor shall appoint a qualified individual to fill the vacancy, subject to council approval by a majority vote at the next regular meeting.
So, discussion or just vote?
I think well, it's 6:20,
discussion,
so
vote.
we're gonna,
I'm not, that's y'all, so
we're gonna vote.
chair and co-chair.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna vote. We're at voting time at this point, so.
Okay.
Mayor.
Since there's no discussion, so if there's no discussion, I'll have to vote no because I have a question, so.
Oh, well, what's your question?
So is this disregarding their committee on their
Yes.
petition? No.
Yeah. So Elijah, if you did that, you would delete this would completely replace all the current language under vacancies. You delete the current language and
Yeah.
supplant it with that. That's what
Yeah.
you're proposing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Rayshawn, what do you think?
You're removing everything?
I do, actually.
Yeah,
You want water?
the main difference.
I've got water, thank you.
You all want water?
No, thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah, the main difference is this reference to the county committees, everything there. Essentially, it's just giving the power back to, or completely to the remaining members of council to replace the person who.
Can I just say one thing? We're not open for discussion, but I just want to.
Go ahead, please,
Okay, great.
please.
So I think this is a little bit of a contentious discussion because of what has occurred over the past 2 years, 18 months of the city for how a person was replaced. So typically, ideally, if a member of council has a committee, their committee would elect their person. So let's just say Erica's on council and she put 1, 2, 3 on her committee. We would determine who is going to fill her seat because we know what Erica would do, how she, portrays herself, and we would want that seat to be filled by a person who's like-minded like Erica. However, if a member of council does not have a committee, we've gone through some crazy times over the past 18 months in regards to the last 3 appointments. One person had a detailed, thorough interview. Multiple candidates were, interviewed. A second time, a person just raised their hand and then they got the seat and council voted. And I think the third time was similar to the first time, or the second time rather. So I think that there should be a streamlined process. I am concerned, though, that if you don't have a committee, if we as the resident electors of North College Hill have a person whom we've elected to the seat, but there's a member of council who we did not elect to the seat, and that person has an opportunity to choose the next candidate, the citizens don't have a voice. So I think if we can add language that there should be a standard. So this is an election year. This year we vote for 5 new council members. So I think there should be a wording in there that states the person has to have a committee and it doesn't leave it up to council.
Yeah, I guess just one thing, and maybe we should just vote on it, and if we can't agree, then we'll just have to kind of table it for this charter review. But it does state that it's the county central committee of the political party by which the last occupant of that office or member-elect was nominated, right? So I know we discussed a chosen committee by the person, but I think we determined that was actually an incorrect reading of the current charter, and maybe even historical practice was incorrect. But this is explicitly saying that it's the county central committee of the political party by which the last occupant of that
Are you
office.
removing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're a nonpartisan city.
So I don't disagree with council. I think that's a great way to do it, but I just don't like the fact that you're taking that, I don't want to use the word power, but that right from the candidate to not be able to choose, who they pick for their committee.
What if the person is an independent? There's no central committee that represents independent voters.
Well, then
It provides for that. If you don't have a committee, then it tells you what you need to do. So,
Which is what was done with one of the last 3 appointments.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're a yes for the language?
Yes for the language.
Okay. Elijah?
I'm a yes.
Ms. Curitan?
Is there a way that we can add in there that the precedent should be set for there to be a committee? And if we can, I would be a yes. If we cannot, I just don't want to take away what our voters have said at the ballot. So if we cannot, then it would be a no. If we can put language in there regarding a committee, then I would be a yes.
Okay, so just as it stands right now, it's a no. Is that right?
Well, Erica and the mayor.
Or for your vote, sorry, just to clarify.
As is,
Yeah.
without modifications of recommendation, it's a no.
Okay.
Once again. Oh, goodness. Okay, so, yikes. Here is what I will say. I'm mindful of the time, but I did take some time to look at the other cities around us in Hamilton County. And several of the cities, more than one, as a matter of fact, did not get the replacements in place within the time provided by their charter or whatever. So there are like vacancies in several of the cities. I don't know how you get anything done as a city if we have vacancies up here, which is how one of the individuals actually got up here. We literally were down to the last couple of days. And I'm going to credit you, Ms. Curitan, even though you probably don't want credit for that. However, there was a holiday weekend coming up or something, some such thing, and we thought we had more time than we did. We had no more time. And so
Eric, the only thing I would say is that what Elijah said, don't forget, he had a provision in there that if you didn't, you could extend it. And then you also, if you didn't get it done in 45 days, which is what currently it says, 45 days, then the mayor could appoint.
Yeah. The mayor doesn't have a vote. The mayor should not be able to appoint. Council?
I think that's the part that I'm having trouble with. You know, we have a
Mayor
separation of
don't want
powers.
to appoint.
Huh?
And the mayor doesn't want to
Good.
appoint.
So let's remove that off.
We have to
all
have
the way.
that
Not for
separation
that.
of powers.
And I
so.
think for
I'm
this,
I'm just saying that just so you remember that what you're proposing wouldn't happen under what you're voting on because there is a provision in there.
and council is responsible for themselves, so I don't think the mayor should have a say in who sits, with them on their
Right.
committee.
So I think I'm a no because, I'm a no on that one.
Okay.
Okay, so that one's a no. Okay, what's the next section we have to address?
Yep, next section, 4.02, qualifications for the mayor. Adjusting it says they need a minimum of 3 years continuous residency. We're proposing to change that to 5 years continuous residency.
Okay, Mayor,
Yes.
Rashawn,
No.
Elijah,
No.
Ms. Curitan.
No.
Okay, I'm a yes. So, but that was voted down. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, which is, I guess, 4.03.
Yep, so 4.03, subsection 4, we discussed adding language to read, the mayor shall attend meetings of the council of the city when specifically requested by such council at least once per calendar month.
I think that's already a standard.
It is not.
It's not. Oh, okay.
Mayor.
No.
Rashawn,
Yes.
Elijah,
Yes.
Ms. Curitan.
Yes.
I'm a yes. We haven't had the mayor like
It says
refuse to show up.
requested, so it's
I
the
know.
same thing. You just changed it.
Yeah,
It says requested.
We would hope we don't hang on to that word. We hope not.
Did.
What is the next section,
Yeah.
Elijah?
So this would be a new section added to section 4, or to Article 4. It'd be section 4.05. It would be titled Annual Address to the City. And the text would read, "No later than March 1st of each year, the mayor shall deliver an annual address to the residents of the city outlining the state of the city's affairs, including financial conditions, administrative achievements, and priorities for the coming year. The address shall be presented at a regular or special meeting of the council, open to the public in accordance with section 3.05, and noticed at least 7 days in advance at the city's administrative office on the city's primary online platform. A written copy of the address shall be made available to the public at the city administrative office and online within 7 days following its delivery."
Come on. Come on.
Okay, Mayor?
Yep.
I'm reading 3.5 again. Oh, is that you?
That's
That
just
was
the
the last
it's-
part that you said.
It's 4.05, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Rayshawn,
Yes.
Elijah,
Yes.
and Ms. Curitan?
Yes.
I am a yes as well. What's the next section, Elijah?
Okay. Last item is Article 7, and it is currently, that position is titled Finance Manager. The proposal is to change that to Finance Director.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so the mayor is a yes. Rayshawn,
Yes.
Elijah,
Yes.
Ms. Curitan?
I need to understand who made this recommendation and the reason. And what was the reason for changing it from manager to director?
Because of the duties that the current or the previous financial managers, it has been that of a director where they have to supply reports and the type of reports and the different job functions that they have to do.
When we've had a manager in that role in the years past, let's just think about the last 3, 4, 5 years. Were they able to successfully execute those documents in those roles? So Mr. Mosby, Ms. Eakey, Ms. Chamberlain.
Talking about city administrators.
We're talking
Oh, I'm
about-
sorry. Fine. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. My mind went there. Whomever those parties were, I can't even remember. But were they able to successfully access those documents without any delay or any hesitation?
I'm not going to say any hesitation, no, any delay. There were some things, when you're working with different programs. So I just think because of the scope of the job and some of the things that they have to do, I think it should be a director. Individuals are different, how they go about their tasks and how they maneuver through their daily jobs. So each individual is different. You have some people who are computer literate, some who are not. So just because of the scope of the job, I think it needs to be a director.
And is the ultimate goal changing the title from manager to director? Is the ultimate goal to have a boost in that salary pay to now that we can pay what a manager would pay?
I think
Or,
when we
excuse me, what a
initially
director would
talked
pay.
about it, you pretty much get what you pay for. I mean, you pay for, if you keep it down, the salary low, you're going to attract entry level. That's not what we need in that position.
No, not at all. At all. Sure. Thank you. Yep.
Yes.
Oh,
It's on
I
me?
was waiting for your, yeah.
Oh,
waiting for
yeah.
your vote.
Under that explanation and what we're looking to level up our city on and with, I would say yes.
I'm a yes as well. However, there's, I don't see notes about one other thing, and I'd like to throw that in there. I am mindful that it is 6:34. I also want to put under powers and duties of the finance director, number 8, shall attend one council meeting per calendar month and provide a report. Shall.
That would be under 7.02.
Yeah.
Yes, so it would be after number 7, number 8. We have a part in the agenda that is just always blank. So if the person is a director, I think that they should come to one meeting per month and give a report. Like, this is what's going on with the finances of our city.
Can I take that up one more level?
Sure.
Just one more. 7.02, I agree with, but let's also look at 8 points. Yes, Mr. Dieters, I am stating what you do. I think if we're going to make the finance director.
Oh, we're getting there. Can
Okay.
I just want to vote on that.
Got you.
So I just had a question with that. Are you requiring that they come to the other meeting, the committee meeting as well?
They're not required to come to the committee meeting now.
Nope.
I'm just requiring that they come to one council meeting per calendar month and provide a report with regard to what, the financial health or finances of the city.
Because a lot of times they're on those agendas. So I'm just trying to get clear.
They're always on the council agenda and they never come.
I'm not the council. Well, the finance manager was asked, they asked to put her on there. This was some time back. That's neither here nor there.
Listen,
My
I
question was
appreciate
whether
that.
or not if they were going to be required to come to the committee meeting as well.
I don't think they should be required.
That's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that they come to one
Council meeting?
council meeting
And
per
provide a
calendar
report.
month. One meeting per month. So not even every council meeting, because that's a lot. One meeting per month and give a report, just telling us what's going on with the city. Financial health, whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 I'm a yes. Okay. And last but not least, we have our law director. So the law director, and we, in the past, this is the perfect example of when the mayor and the council have to agree. Nothing ever changes if the mayor and the council have to agree. So you had 7 members of council launch an attack against the law director, or I don't know if it was 7 members or not, but, we don't want that. It's a bad look. So there needs to be some mechanism when the mayor and the council doesn't agree. We have to figure something out.
So your suggestion, what's your recommendation?
I don't know.
Okay. So is it correct that the law director, he or she would serve at the leisure of council 50% and at the mayor 50%? Is that correct?
Right.
No?
He said 100.
Well,
I mean,
how much you give is 100, but the wording per the charter.
I mean, the law director under the charter just works for both. So, I mean, it's not a, I don't say, okay, well, you've used all your time this month, council, you don't get any more.
Right. Exactly. I don't want it to be like a 50-50 proposition. I think that's probably not a good description. I guess my concern, let's just say that all of council disagrees or doesn't like the law director. Let's just say we don't. For some reason, we've decided that we hate the law director. I think it is a bad look for our city to be putting resolutions and that sort of thing. It's embarrassing to me that, that happened. It just doesn't, it's not a good look. We've got to figure out some kind of way, if there's some kind of disagreement that we figure, I don't know.
Should we, maybe not. I was going to say, what is the current process if there's another director but they don't serve council, they serve the city and the city administrator. But that process, what does that current process look like if there's another party? I know police and fire are excluded But what if there's a director of public works or a director, the finance director, or a recreation director?
The police chief or the fire chief or the director of public works, the city administrator has the power to terminate those three positions. However, the mayor does not have the power to terminate the law director, and conversely, the council does not have the power to terminate the law director. They would all have to agree.
I think if you look at most city charters, this is pretty consistent. And I think the idea is that when you're, and I will know from my personal experience, but sometimes you have to tell people what they may not want to hear.
Sure.
And so if you subject that, like, there are times when I've had to tell this mayor things that we've had disagreements on about legal things, or times that we've had disagreements with you guys on. And if that person can be eliminated, it's purposely like this. So there's like a check and balance that the person has the ability to give the answer from a legal standpoint and not have like the pressures of, well, I'm going to say what I need to say because I want to keep my job kind of thing, right? So that is typical in most, and I'm not saying that just because I happen to be the law director. I'm just saying that is typical what you'll see in most charters, that is like that. Like when a position has to be approved by both, once it's approved, it can't be eliminated until both make a decision too.
Okay, that makes
Give
sense.
one to the other, then you're kind of like giving one side more power than the other when it comes to that position, but they both have to appoint too. So.
Okay, that makes sense.
So again, could council use their powers to zero out that salary if in fact they do not agree?
Yes.
I suppose they could. That would be an interesting approach because we wouldn't have an attorney.
Because council sets salaries.
Well, yeah.
Not for an attorney. No.
Yes, they do. They
I mean,
set it.
yes, but
Here.
there's no wiggle room for that,
We have to have an attorney.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I don't know. That would be I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I know that I don't know. There are lawyers who live in North College Hill. I am one. However, I don't know if there are any lawyers who would be qualified or even have a desire to be the law director. So we can't say resident elector. I don't know what
Would
the
it
answer
change if we change the word to city solicitor? Although they are parallel, it wouldn't? No. What are y'all thinking, Rayshawn, Elijah?
I haven't heard any like specific suggestions to. I don't have strong opinions, and I haven't heard any like specific suggestions to the existing
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
I think that we're, I think what Mr. Dieters said makes sense, because you would be subject to the whims of personalities if one section or faction had power over the other. So,
But similar to as you gave the example, because I don't think anyone has ever thought of that if council doesn't agree, call the special meeting and zero it out. Not to say that's always the best, because that's probably going to make it even more of a problem, but
yeah,
it gives
that is what is referred to as the nuclear option. And I suppose that council still would have the nuclear option. So
I do want to make a recommendation, though, and I thought you were going to mention it.
Oh, okay.
That as we are requiring the finance director to give a report, I think it would be healthy for the law director to give a report. And at one point in time, when Dave Huffman was the city's public works director, he gave reports. I just think, and Chief Cheney, he comes and he gives his reports. I just think it should be a precedent set that each director, and Annalise has come, so I just think it should be a precedent set that each director, one time a month, come give the city an update and a report so we know what's going on. Finance, law, public works, recreation, police, fire.
I think that the city manager or administrator, whatever, we can require the directors to, because they report directly to her, so she can require them to come and give a report once a month. So I think that we can certainly address that. But so the law director shall attend I want the law director to come to every meeting, and I don't know what the report would include, but maybe,
My only concern is that a lot of what I do is attorney-client privilege. So I really
Right.
can't speak to it in public.
right, I don't know what your
Not
report
to
would
say
include.
that you would have to go and tell us what's happening behind closed doors, but to say, hey, I don't want to talk about this, but I do. So like the litigation with the Cincinnati Enquirer, that's all public record. That's all public information. You represent the city, and the city got sued. Whether there was a cost behind it, doesn't matter. The city got sued. If there's any pending litigation that's happening where the city is in jeopardy, not in jeopardy, the city is actually actively getting sued, I think it would be helpful. And you don't have to give detail, but just say, hey, this is what I'm working on. I'm working on some things so we can.
That's all protected under the law, though. Anything I'm doing for a client, I can't disclose no matter what it is.
So why is it that currently, as it states, it asks when we have council meetings if the law director has anything? If everything is closed off, attorney-client privilege, then why is that section even mentioned in our council
Because
meetings?
sometimes I don't. Sometimes there'll be things, I've given reports before. And
Give an example. Yeah, something that you feel like would be necessary for the citizens or
I
all.
did change it generally in the law on something that I want, that we might have. We might have a piece of legislation in front of you that I want to make sure you understand something on it and why it's there. So if there's a need for something like that, I'll give a report. But like just what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis, that's all protected. I'm not allowed to say anything. Like even if you make a request for legal bills, what I do, all that has to be redacted. All you can see is the date the work was done and how much it cost. You can't see any of the stuff in between.
What about if there's ever a moment in time the city has a severance package where the city has decided to part ways with someone? And again, it's all public information. So when the city decided to part ways with Lieutenant Petroselli,
That was all, council got a report on that. It was all in executive session.
what I'm referencing though is that any police officer or fire department or firefighter, they work for the city, but it's the taxpayers who actually pay the salaries. So I'm just thinking, how could
I
that have
understand
been?
that, but the
Yeah.
law is set up that all that stuff takes place. The law identifies all those things are things that can be talked with in council and executive session. So the law director does give a report on all those things. It's just things that by law are considered confidential and protected by executive sessions.
Once it's all said and done, though, not when it's in the process. I'm just thinking once it's all said and done, the ink has dried on the paper, something to say, hey, council, or hey, citizens, I wanted to let you all know,
That's still all
Lieutenant.
protected. Everything that happens is still protected.
No statements can be given ever when there's a city employee who parts ways in a severance package.
The law director can't give those statements like somebody else could, but
Well, I think that what we probably just need to be mindful of is that we have a contract with our law director, and we just need to include what we expect in that contract. That's probably what we should do. And, it shouldn't be subject to the whim of, personalities and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I am with it. And I know I had very strong feelings about it once upon a time, but I also realized that all of these positions are heavy, and it's very easy to make suggestions like, oh, this should be an elected position, and it has to be an attorney who lives in North College Hill. They
Oh,
did,
right.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to do
Valid.
that, at least not
And
today.
you guys had to
so-
you guys have to subcontract at everything, and
Right.
your bill was probably 5 times what it is now.
Right. So I'm at a, I think we just need to make sure our contract addresses our needs as a city. So I see some further highlights further down. If section 10.07.
Just a moment.
Elijah?
Yeah, so section 10.07 currently reads all decisions shall require at least a majority of the appointed members of the various commissions under Article 10 of the Charter. The proposed amendment is a majority of the currently appointed and serving members of the various commissions.
What does that mean exactly? If they're appointed, aren't they serving?
I get, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't recall. This was from one of our earlier meetings.
Oh, okay.
What about you just got rid of the word appointed? I mean, the majority members of the various commissions, I mean, if you're a member, you're serving, right? And they're all appointed. Maybe you guys, someone was trying to say, well, what if there were supposed to be 5, but there's only 4 right now? But I don't know if you really need to do that, because if there's a vacancy, then you're not a
I was
member.
about to say, yeah, the law always requires a quorum.
Right.
So, and, there has to be a majority. So I don't know if it's necessary to kind of fluff out what the people are going to be voting for, because remember, we want people to actually read this on the ballot and all of this ballot language. I don't want it to become too cumbersome. So,
Yeah, so we can just.
so I'm just going to ask for a vote on that. Mayor?
No.
Okay. Rayshawn?
No.
Elijah?
No.
Ms. Curitan?
No.
I'm a no as well. Okay. Okay, and as I scroll down, section 13.02. Elijah?
So this is about special elections, and the requested amendment is at the end. It says currently special elections may be held on any date, including but not limited to the dates of the general and primary elections in odd or even number years. The amendment would read, and maybe I don't have it specifically in here, but essentially we're asking for 45 days notice for a special election. So maybe we could make it read, special elections may be held on any date with 45 days advance notice.
Just as a statement here, I wasn't here when you guys talked about this, but the Board of Elections already have rules before to get 75 days to get stuff on the ballot, so you really don't need that. You can't get anything on the ballot unless you have it. If it's a issue, it's got to be 75 days.
Yeah, but we can put something on the ballot and we haven't notified the citizens that it's going to be on the ballot according to this 13.02. And this says elections can be held on any date. So, and there was another city who shall remain nameless, who passed their fire levy in August. So, there were about 300 people that voted for the entire city to raise their taxes because the election was held in August, which was a little bit sneaky to do. And again, so I don't like that held on any date language, but
Well, it's got to be on one of the dates that's an election date for the state, right? It's not. It says any date, but I think that's just because in case the state ever changes when they do theirs, we don't want to be in a position where we have a date now it doesn't align with them,
okay.
and now we can't run an election until next time we have a charter review.
So maybe shall require notice to the citizens or something like that. That way we're not doing things and nobody knows about it. And that, a future council is not going to do something and, I don't know that there's an election on that day because nobody provided notice that there's an election on that day.
Put something on the ballot, you would have, as a council,
Right, but
pass an ordinance to put
right,
on the
but we
ballot.
don't have to send out we don't have to give notice other than that.
And when the
So
residents.
we would have to, the residents would have to actually, they would have to pay attention to the ordinances, right?
Right.
Which
But
they're not
where else
posted.
Where else would you put the notice?
I don't know, on the website,
Yeah.
special election.
Yep.
Nope.
So for
special
neighboring
election,
cities,
yes, something.
They put them in the library. They put them in not random. They put them in locations where they know citizens of that city go. So Forest Park, they actually when you walk in, they have their pieces of legislation, ordinances in the front available. So if we want to say wherever the city center is, it would be welcoming if it were here. Any pieces of legislation that any person who comes into this building would have access to easily. Right now, if you don't come to council meetings, you don't know what they're voting on and discussing.
We used to post it
I understand the purpose of it. My only concern from like looking at all the horrible things that could potentially happen, the more requirements you put on that, the more you open yourself up to if someone wants to challenge an election, that they could challenge it. So while that is okay, I mean, it could end up significantly impacting funding or something if.
You got our back though, right? If they want to challenge us on the legal, you got our back. I don't want us to walk and never do nothing because
You don't-
this person may
no, I'm
challenge,
not
that
saying
person may
You
challenge.
don't necessarily want to make things very cumbersome for you legally. Like those might be really good practices, but whether or not you want to make that invalidate an election is a whole other story.
I just don't want a future council because I think that I'm not going to do anything sneaky like that, but I don't want a future council to do that either. I thought that that was sneaky and underhanded. I'm just saying it. Having an election in August and nobody knows you're having an election for that major of an issue, it just is. Most people know about November elections. Very few people vote in May, but they at least know about the May elections. Nobody really pays attention to August elections. Nobody.
February ones too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to that. So
So the
Voting on
recommended
this?
wording.
Where we
I
voted.
I really just feel like notice is required. So that's, I don't want to beat a dead horse, and it's almost 7:00. I get it. So I just want us to, some kind of notice if there is a special election. If there's no special election, no notice is required. But if there's a special election for something, whatever that case may be, make sure people know about it.
So what would that language say?
Yeah, so just to iron that out, it will now read, the last sentence will read, special elections, comma, which shall require 45 days notice to the residents, comma, may be held on any date, including but not limited to the dates of general and primary elections in odd or even numbered years.
But did you say law was 75? Or the,
He's talking about what it requires to get on the ballot. What Elijah is referencing is the notice to the citizens.
to the citizens?
Okay, let's vote.
Okay, Mayor?
Yes, although I don't think 45 days is enough, yes.
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 Yes. Okay, and is there anything else that anybody else wants? Oh, wait, I see, term limits. Ooh. Yeah, there's a highlight there, term limits. What was the clarification there?
I'm looking for it. This was an older comment.
While he's looking at that,
Yep.
one of the things I noticed that we had this whole Article 15 that was transitional provisions that were really only in place when the very first charter was passed. I would recommend that you just delete that whole section 15 because it's not needed any longer.
Okay. So all of Article 15?
Look at it. It's all about what's going to happen with the transition from no charter to a charter.
Okay, let's vote on that.
Skipping.
Well, we're going to go back to it. We're not skipping it. We're just going to go back. Article 15 is easy. They're all transitional provisions, so none of them apply anymore. So, Mayor,
Yes.
Rashawn,
Yes.
Elijah,
Yes.
Ms. Kiritan,
Yes.
I'm a yes. So we're going to delete Article 15. So let's go back to term limits. I think that's the last thing. Is that the last section?
Let's see. I honestly, it's something that I added, but am not recalling the specific change, and the text there is not particularly clear, so I don't have any specific recommendation there to bring to vote. I do have a later revision, though, that was related to Section 14.06 for the charter review.
Oh, okay.
And it was requiring council to provide a public written explanation of any rejected measures.
Oh, goodness.
Rejected, you mean
Yes.
recommendations?
Recommendations, yeah.
Okay.
Meaning,
All right, well,
to
yeah.
understand that, are you stating that what we recommend and why they decided to not go forward with the vote to put it on the ballot, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, Mayor,
Yes.
Rashawn,
Yes.
Elijah,
Yes.
Ms. Curtin,
Yes.
and I think I'm a yes as well. Okay. So now we're gonna, I think term limits is the last thing. Is that the last? Yeah,
What
that's-
section is that in?
13.
Which one?
Term limits?
13.
All right, okay.
I've kind of gone back and forth about term limits. I think, because our U.S. senators don't have term limits, and I think that they probably should. Of course, we have, no offense to any old white guys, but we have a bunch of old white guys running the country, and that's not what our country looks like. So, but it's just because of, and they get to vote themselves raises and, just all kinds of shenanigans and things that go on up there. Because I just think term limits are always a good thing, of course. So we have term limits here. I think that's a good idea because I cringe at the notion of some of the people who were on council and who would still be on council forever. So I think 12 years is plenty of time to serve and give somebody else an opportunity. And of course, there's a council member, then there's council president, there's mayor. So there's 3 spots there where if you really, had a notion, I guess you could serve for 36 years, which is also frightening. But I'm okay with term limits. But if there's something I'm missing, please let me know.
I think one piece of information that we should just chew on is, and again, you can only look at what's currently happening in our city on our council. I don't think that all the time each person who sits in these seats here have done the work to know the history of what our city has gone through. Those who've been here for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, they know. They've been in it. They've been in the trenches. The newer people maybe not as invested yet. So we run the risk of telling a person who's been here for 12 years, thank you, I appreciate your knowledge, your expertise, your diligence, and, having hard discussions, but we're done with you. And then leaving it up to people who don't read legislations, who don't necessarily apply themselves as they should. Your eyes are closed and your head is down. That's just my take on it. I'd rather someone be here who knows, who wants to be here versus us saying, nope, your time's over, next.
Okay. Well, that's certainly so. What do you propose?
I don't think that we should have term limits. I really just, we are leveling up. Yep, they could become mayor. Yep, they could become president of council. Yep, all these other different roles. But again, we don't want to say next because it's just of a term limit. Let there be a viable reason that person can no longer serve on council versus just being because their time is up.
Okay, that's that makes a lot of sense, and honestly, I don't think it's going to come up very much because most people actually resign or refuse to run again. So,
That's true too.
I think it is very rarely going to come up. I think there's one person currently on council who was elected. No, two out of 7 who was who were elected in the last election 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So somehow I think this is going to come up very rarely, but okay. So
just to clarify,
right.
are you recommending to just remove section 13.09, or would there be any amended language?
Mayor Nichols is saying no, but let's hear the reason why you say no.
think there should be term limits.
Oh,
We-
okay.
we
Well,
can't hear you in the
that's-
mic.
That's kind
I
of,
think there should be term limits.
yeah, I think that's what we're voting on. So I guess if we're
Any reasoning
removing-
behind it?
if we're,
Because, multiple reasons, but one, we're ever changing. And, as things change, I just think that the body needs to change as well. Sometimes you can be in a position so long and you become, is stagnant. The vision of the people may change. So I just think it's healthy to have different people, new people. I don't think, that's just my opinion.
well, what I will say about that is that we live in a different day and age, even from 12 years ago.
12 years ago, absolutely.
Because social media and the ability people have to communicate by text string and sending out messages with those little 5-digit things where you get random messages from politicians, which is annoying, by the way. I think that there's a more of an effective ability to communicate. And honestly, I really think that if there were no term limits, it keeps people on their toes. If you don't like somebody who's on council, you get out there and you do something about it. You get out there and you campaign, you pull petitions, you run for office. And, we have a contested election for the first time in recent memory. I am so excited about that, to give people choices, because I think that that's very, very important. So
In that same sentiment, if there is a term limit, though, they don't just get to keep their seat. They have to run every single time. So I don't want anyone to have that notion that once you're here, you're here. You have to run to keep the seat that
Right.
you want.
Absolutely.
So if we don't want Jane Doe, John Doe, whomever else, no matter if we have term limits or not, and again, if we have term limits, that eradicates that. But if we don't have term limits, Jane Doe and John Doe are up here and we don't want them anymore, then we go out and we vote, and the citizens have a right. But you don't just keep your seat for the whole time and you never have to do anything. No, you have to run. You have to run.
Okay.
Show us you want to be
right.
up here.
Okay, so 7:07. So I think this is our last section.
I actually have one thing that we
Sure.
didn't review.
Okay, well, let's vote on this one.
Okay.
So, Mayor,
What's the vote?
to remove section 13.09.
No.
Rachel?
No.
Elijah?
No.
Ms. Curitan?
Yes, and although I know it's not going to pass, I want my yes to stand.
I think I'm a yes, but we're voted down though, so that's going to be a no.
And then 13.08, I don't know how I overlooked this. And actually 13.08, the replacement by council. Did anyone else read this? Because it kind of contradicts what we've been discussing on the process of how a candidate is replaced. If for any reason a successful candidate who is unable to serve out one's term of office failed to designate an election committee on the petition for election submitted to the county board of elections prior to the general election, she or he shall be replaced by the majority of council sitting at the time of the office holder's vacancy.
That's the process now.
Yeah, that's what happened with one of the council members.
Right.
That's what happened with 2 of the council members.
Yeah, that happened with 3 of the council members, actually. So,
No, it was just 2, like where council actually voted.
okay, got
Like,
it.
one of them had a committee.
Okay,
so.
got it. But didn't we also talk about that in section that we wanted to have the committees added?
We ended up voting no on that
Yeah.
amendment. So we voted to keep it as is.
So doesn't the charter, my point is, doesn't the charter duplicate itself by having it in 2 locations? And if so, then is there discussion necessary for this 13.08 if we left the other portion alone?
I don't think so. I think it just talks about the replacement by council, and I think it just works in conjunction with the other section.
I believe that section is in line with the Board of Election as well.
So one more piece of information: the Board of Elections does not audit it, so that's how we kind of got into the debacle that we had earlier.
That is where
yeah.
citizens like Ms. Curitan figure out that there's something wrong.
Elijah
And
yes.
you speak up and say, hey, there's something wrong, because this Karen Crumman versus the city of North College Hill, when they tried to make that retroactive, there was a citizen that's where that lawsuit came from. So, there's always, I think, the Board of Elections is not going to micromanage cities, but, it's up to the citizens to do that through elections and through paying attention. So
Great. So your job now, Miss Underwood, is to produce a report. You'll provide the report to the city members of the charter. That
Yes.
report will go to council for their review, and then council will have it on their agenda of May 12th, or is it May 5th?
Monday, whatever Monday, May 5th.
May 5th.
Yes.
May 5th. Okay.
As our council take notoriously long periods of time to vote on and pass anything.
Yes.
So-
And I just want to make one more piece of information, because we always put that plug in. This is an election year. People will watch this live now and they'll watch it later, years to come. If there is a candidate who you want to be on the ballot, they have until August, I want to say the beginning of August 2nd or 5th. If you are a person who wants to run for a seat on this council, 5 open seats, you have until August, I want to say, just say 2nd, to turn in your petition to the
6 open seats. The president of council is open as well.
Well, that includes, I think, but yep, whatever she says.
Okay. And there is an election next week. For those of you who are interested, you vote in every election. It is so, so, so important. And this is a major issue, even though nobody's talking about it. It is a major, major issue. It just kind of talks about bonds and how things are funded. And please, please, please always pay attention. Your vote matters. And we don't want 1,000 people voting for the entire state of Ohio and deciding that issue. So there is an election next week, and the polling places will be open in the city of North College Hill. So. Okay, so I want to thank everyone who participated in this Charter Review Commission. Thank you so, so very much. Thank you very much to our ICRC, our representative, who is here beyond the time that he was told that he would need to be here. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Dieters, for showing up and kind of, giving us nudges to go in the in a good direction. And I do want to let everyone know that I truly appreciate the time that you put into this, and it's recorded for all posterity. So, all right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.